If the game has one of the following words, fishing, bass, or carp in the title, it won't be featuring in this tier list. Okay, let's go. Hello all! So, editing me's already done an intro, I believe? Let's get to it. So, let's kick things off with run-of-the-mill, Nier Automata. So, Nier Automata fishing I would describe as somewhat fairly basic. You find a fishing spot, you sit down, you send out your bot to grab a fish, and then you get the fish. I would say this is a fairly run-of-the-mill fishing game, as it were, so let's put that in the C tier. Next up, Five Nights at Freddy's. I believe in Five Nights at Freddy's, I want to say it's Five Nights at Freddy's 3. I haven't played the series, but I know it definitely appears in Ultimate Custom Night. There's it's a quick time event, I believe. It's a QTE minigame event for fishing for somebody called Old Man Consequences. It's just a little dude that sits on the side. You press the button when the square lines up, and that's it. From what I can see of it, it's a rather boring and lackluster fishing minigame. There's nothing to it. So, I'm actually going to put this one in D tier. Next up, Civ 5. So, Civ 5's fishing is a little bland. You research the tech for fishing. You then build a workboat. You set the workboat onto the tile of the fish, and you tell it to fish. And then it fishes for the whole game until an AI brings over a trireme, declares war on you, and then, gets rid of the damn thing. Interestingly though, if you're playing as Japan, the samurai units can actually put the fishing boats down for you instead of you having to build a workboat. But otherwise, I would say that the Civ fishing is also fairly lackluster. We'll go D tier here. Monster Hunter. Let's talk about Monster Hunter World, I think, more specifically, because this is the one where fishing was its best. So, with fishing in Monster Hunter World, you get a rod, you can cast it out, and you catch the fish. The bigger fish have a button spamming minigame, but what makes the fishing in World better is that you have the log where it keeps track of every single fish type, and it accounts for the biggest and the smallest ones that you've caught, which is kind of cool, to be honest. And then there's my preferred alternative of fishing, where you just yeet your net and just chuck it in. So I find fishing to be quite satisfying in Monster Hunter World. I'll stick it in A tier. If we were talking about Wilds, they remove all the fancy bells and whistles. No, sorry, not Wilds. Wilds isn't out yet. Rise. If we talk about Rise, probably C tier. Hopefully Wilds will keep the world mechanic, and we can just yeet nets. But that's a few days time from now, so we'll see. The Pokemon series. I'm just going to sweep through as a generalisation for Pokemon, because there's an ever so slight difference in, say for instance, Ruby and Sapphire, where you have to press A at the dots when it tells you that you've got a bite, but otherwise you just cast the net out, you react to when it's like, it gives you an exclamation mark, and then you battle the Pokemon. So the actual fishing part of it is rather standard. Let's go C tier. Even though, of course, with Pokemon you get the added embellishment of then doing the fight, but that doesn't really count as the fishing part, does it? If we were counting the battle, of course, that would be further up. Next up, old school RuneScape. Well, RuneScape 3 as well, but let's talk about old school RuneScape because everybody knows that OSRS is better. All I have to say is Karamja. I think we can all agree that just sort of goes in A tier. No, so you cast you cast your rod or net or cage or whatever you have for the fish that you need out, and then it just collects them up in your inventory, and it just increases your fishing rate based on your fishing level. Honestly, it's a little more satisfying than the C tier, I think. Let's say it's only slightly more satisfying than just casting out your rod and getting your fish. Sunhaven. So, Sunhaven's fishing minigame is actually pretty good. I quite like it. You cast out your rod, and then you get the little needle. It doofs along the screen and bounces backwards and forwards like you're trying to find the DVD sign to go into the corner of the screen. Except of course it's just a sideways bar, so it's not quite that cool. But honestly, I really like the Sunhaven minigame for fishing, so I'm going to stick it in S tier, honestly. In that case then, I'll leave World where it is, but consider the fact that World sits somewhere around high A, low S. Next up, Hololive. So, Hololive is... well, I mean, Holicure's got to be up in S tier as well. It's actually better than the Sunhaven minigame, so let's do this. So the Hololive minigame is DDR style. When you cast the net out, it finds you a fish, and then the buttons that they want you to press roll across the screen, and then you just follow the pattern. Insert the fact that it gets incrementally harder as the combo increases. Okay, so after some technical issues, we are back for the quote-unquote part 2, as it were. Next up, let's go with Red Dead Redemption 2. So Red Dead Redemption 2, by default, has a very basic fishing system. You get a fishing line, you put bait on the end, such as cheese, or, you know, worms and stuff, and then you cast the net out and you catch the fish. Or you just get dynamite and blow the damn pond up. So honestly, I actually think the Red Dead Redemption 2 fishing is actually quite satisfying. Minus the fact that if you fish in the swamps you get like gators come after you. But honestly, it's actually kind of cool for fishing in Red Dead Redemption 2. I'm going to stick it in A tier, maybe high B. Let's do some swappy doodies. Bear in mind that RuneScape is like low B. Would be fair. So yeah, Red Dead Redemption 2's high B, low A. Next up, Animal Crossing. I've just grabbed the icon for Wild World. I'll probably slot in some footage of the Wild World gameplay as well. So Animal Crossing's fishing is fairly simple. You get your fishing line, you just chuck it out. But the animations are cool when you've caught a fish. It plops the lure in, the fish swims around with the lure, and then it comes out, and then you get like a little sound effect and your character gets all happy. So, with the extra little stuff they add in for the actual success of the fishing, I think it kind of bumps it from a high C to a low B maybe. I think it's slightly more satisfying to fish in Animal Crossing than it is in RuneScape, unless you've got the fishing gate, but whatever. Next up, Elder Scrolls. Skyrim specifically, I suppose. You jump into the river or the pond, you swim to the fish, you collect the fish. It's the same as when you're going around collecting all the mushrooms, so it can be a little tedious. Of course, there are mods that you can have where you can get fishing nets on all the like to make fishing really good, but let's talk about base game because that's how it's presented to the player. I honestly think that the Skyrim one's kind of tedious for that, having to collect it, especially when you're going down the river to try and collect salmon, for instance, because you've got the current against you, you know, next to Riverwood. That's a pain. So I'm actually going to give this a very low C, maybe high D. We'll stick it there for now. Next up, Warframe. So I haven't got footage for this one, unfortunately, but you, at some point during the main quest line, you get given the ability to have a harpoon. I used to really enjoy fishing in Warframe, but let's be honest, it's kind of basic. Kind of like how RuneScape has probably got an unfair rating based on nostalgia factor, but there we go. For Warframe, you just grab your harpoon, you slam it into the fish, you catch fish. Fairly base rate fishing game, fairly base rate tier. Let's go about the same as Nier Automata. The difference being, of course, that Nier Automata you get to at least look at 2B or whoever you're playing as at the time. Next up, We Play. The fishing game in We Play is absolutely freaking goated. I mean, you control the fish entirely. You grab all the fish, you pull them out of the water. You got scores. Like this is an easy S tier. This sits up here. The We Play minigame was awesome for fishing. Sure, tanks is awesome, but we're talking about fishing here, so We Play can sit up in S tier. You know what? You know what? We Play fishing is so good. I'm re-evaluating Sunhaven. I'm not re-evaluating Hololive. But let's say We Play is a solid S tier, Sunhaven is high A, low S. I think that's fair. This would sit in a borderline. Next up, and lastly, The Sims 4. Well, we're ending on a disappointing note, aren't we? With The Sims 4, you literally just tell a fish to... You tell a fish to go sim. You know what I mean? You tell a sim to go fish, they fish. Wow. Such fun. Much entertainment. Wow. Oh yeah, and then the fish go in their inventory and your Sims can discover like the species of the guppy while they're reading a book. So, you know, we'll stick that in low C, honestly. It's about as entertaining as the rest of the actions in The Sims 4, to be honest. So yeah. There we go. Just a short, sweet and simple little fun one here. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you soon.